It's nice. It's got a little red vibe going on.
Scorpio. I gotta get that.
Are you really?
I am, yeah. My birthday's coming up.
I'm a Scorpio moon.
Ooh. I don't know if what's the difference between that like a moon. I've never heard that Scorpio moon.
Oh, you got to look this stuff up, Eddie. So when's your birthday?
It's October 31st. So,
Oh, my brother's birthday is on Halloween. That's awesome. Do you know what time you were born?
I do actually. It was like right at like 11:59. It was almost November 1st.
Right. So you know what you could do? You could go online and you could say, I want my rising and my moon sign. And because you know exactly when you were born, you will find out exactly what your rising sign is and your moon sign. Your rising sign is the sign that is basically directing your life. You know, your Scorpio is your characteristics. But if I understand correctly, I'm not too into this, but apparently, if you want to know like what to expect if you believe in horoscopes, then you really should be following your rising sign.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna look into it because there's certain things that happen where I'm like, what? What's going on? Oh man. Well, I'm going to keep all this in, but I'm going to give you a proper introduction. Welcome everyone to the RRBG podcast. Today I'm being joined by Lucia Cifarelli. Am I saying that? Cifarelli. Am I saying that right? It sounds Italian.
It is. It's Lucia.
Oh,
Lucia
Lucia, my
Cifarelli.
bad. Lucia
Yeah.
Cifarelli.
Yes.
All right. And you have a new solo album out. I thought it was your first because I saw that you wrote, first album that you did entirely on your own. But I realized that you have two other albums. It's just that this is the one where you wrote everything on your own.
Yes. Yes. It's
No
a
God here.
long time coming. Yeah.
So what inspired you to do that? Like why the switch now to write everything on your own and be completely independent?
I'd never done anything like that before, and all of my friends have, and I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could. And it was it felt like I needed to graduate to that level. So better late than never.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always wanted to do that, and I have done stuff on my own, but I'm never proud of it. I always feel better out of the collaborative, when I work with other people or we jam or something like that.
Same here. I mean, I'm used to collaborating, and if you see any movement, it's just my little friend
Oh,
who's
hello.
yeah, no, I love collaborating. I've been collaborating 99.9% of my life, but that's why this was so exciting to me because I thought if I'm going to make another solo album, what could I do that I have never done before? So I decided to take a shot at it, and I'm really happy I did because I feel again like I graduated to some new level that I never imagined I would. So it's exciting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I mean, the album's called No God Here. Was there something in particular that like kind of motivated you thematically or got you writing to start with?
That actually wasn't the first song that I wrote for the album, but when I wrote No God Here, that kind of set the bar for what I knew I had to come up with material that was going to meet that standard for me. And, No God Here is it's such a complicated title for a lot of people to wrap their head around because they're not sure if I mean that there's no God, like I don't believe in God. God for me is in everything and everywhere. And I absolutely believe in the greatness of, you know, the all-seeing God that is out there wherever, cosmically, energetically, whatever. The title is more about the hypocrisy that exists around religion and how it's used to manipulate people, suppress, control, and it's used as a tool, right?
Yeah.
Um, we experience this personally and globally, and I had a situation that had happened in my life not too long ago, shortly after my father's passing, and it was an event that triggered a lot of emotion in me and feelings of isolation and abandonment. And then I started thinking of other folks that I've met along the way on my travels and their stories and what it feels like to be an outsider and how a lot of people personally, as I said, in the grand scheme of things, use religion as a weapon, and it feels like it misses the point. So no God here is just basically about hypocrites, who say they believe in God, but their behavior is totally,
Not
uh,
godly like.
contrary to that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I obviously it's one of those things you try not to talk about religion and politics with people because it's a very touchy subject for many people. They get offended. I'm able to have conversations with anybody. I'm not a religious person myself, obviously, as you can see my surroundings, but but I'm more than happy to sit down with, like, say, a rabbi or some, tell me, explain to me, give me your side of the story. Let's see what's up, and maybe I can get an understanding, or maybe I can see that you're full of shit, which is most of the most of the time you notice
Well,
that a lot of these people are full of it.
I think religion is very useful for people that need faith. It keeps them centered and they have the routine of prayer and congregation, congregating together. And that works for some people. For other people, probably like yourself, you don't need that direction. You can engage with the spirit in your own way. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, and we should all have the freedom to do that and to be who we want to be and not be controlled by religion in the ways in which we are. And we see that in all aspects of our lives. And, women, particularly now in America, are seeing religion being used against them to control their bodies. And, wars are being waged around the world, religious wars, and it's just no good.
It's crazy to think that that's still going on. Like, you see all the advances that we're doing in time and understanding, and yes, we're more accepting of women and LGBT and all of this. We're more accepting now, but it's still such an issue with other countries, like you said, waging religious wars. Like, that sounds to me like something you read in a history book. Like, that's not happening now, is it? But it is. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, yeah, but people talk about the LGBTQ community and how accepted they are and women and the freedoms that we have. But it's not really reflected in reality.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, there is discrimination happening every day in all sorts of circumstances by people who claim to um, believe in God. And you know what? I realize that I am not highly educated in the teachings of the Bible, but what I believe personally is that God wants us to um, find our way, make our own choices, live by them, and not have politicians dictating our choices, not certainly over our bodies. Um, and certainly not over how we should dress, who we should love. It just seems it doesn't sit well with me, and I don't believe it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, no, and I applaud you for putting it out there like that. Like, naming the album "No God Here" is a very bold statement, because now You're just saying it to their faces. Like it's not, you're not hiding it in some kind of metaphor or some kind of poetic way. It's just like, hey, this is what we're about. And I find that very, I don't want to say the word brave. It sounds condescending, but it's brave. It's powerful. It's a powerful statement to make right up front.
But all of that being said, my whole life, my journey has been driven by faith and my belief that there is something greater than us out there. So I believe there is something greater than us out there. I believe in God, whatever name you want to call it. I do believe. I just don't believe in the actions of people that are, the
Right.
puppetry. This.
Right. The people that abuse it, they use it as, like
Yeah.
you said, as a weapon. Some people use it as a tool, others use it as a weapon, and it's unfortunate that we're still doing that. But it takes people like yourself to make statements to kind of call them out and shine a light on their BS. Which I was reading through some of the info you sent me of the lyrics and some of the songs, and it seems like that's what the songs are all about, which is shining a light on some of these darker aspects of humanity. You mentioned like school shootings, that kind of thing. Like there's a lot of that. I live in Los Angeles, so you end up in a kind of like a bubble, and
Yeah.
you start to think that this is only happening here. So I wanted to hear your perspective. You live in Germany, so I want to know like how similar or how different is it over there in terms of those types of things.
Well, that song came about, actually, it was suggested to me by a very dear friend who was previously my manager, and his daughter heads up a nonprofit called Bulletproof Pride. And so there was always that in the background. But then as I was making the record, my daughter was in a lockdown at her school down the street
Oh
because
wow.
because there were active shooters on the ground, or so they thought. In the end, it didn't turn out to be active shooters. They were play guns, but the response was exactly the same, and so was the fear. There were helicopters, there were like, military people running. They were in lockdown from 9 in the morning, or maybe it was a little later, maybe it was 10:30 until about 6:30 in the evening. And then everybody said, well, it wasn't real. They didn't have real guns. And then a week later, about 40 minutes away, it happened with real guns. It's unusual to happen around here. We're not used to that sort of thing. But it's becoming more and more frequent. And as we know in America, it happens nearly every day.
Hmm.
So it's terrifying, it's
Yeah,
horrifying,
it's
it's pamphlets, it's horrible. And of course, although I wasn't in KMFDM at the time when the whole Columbine thing happened, the shadow of it is there.
yeah.
So I felt that between what had happened at my daughter's school, the Columbine connection, and also, as I said, my friend whose daughter heads up this nonprofit, there was just this um, opportunity to say something important. And I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't going to be over the top, that might just touch people in the heart, you know? I
Yeah.
hope I did it. I hope people respond to it.
I think they will. I think they will. It's very powerful, but also the music itself is very beautiful. Um, it's just it's one of those things where you see it's such a common, like you said, it's such a common thing here in the States that and the States end up, whether I hate it because it makes the States seem egoic, but they influence culture around the world, and if our culture is school shootings, it's going to start spreading. You know what I mean? It's kind of terrible that's what we are influencing the world with.
Well, and nobody wants to hear this. We need stricter gun control laws, it's just nobody needs to be walking around with a semi-automatic
Hmm.
firearms. I believe in the right to bear arms. I do. I'm an American who grew up with people who had guns, but I just think that the types of guns that people are able to walk around with now, that it's just crazy and unnecessary.
Yeah, it's not like we're going to war every day. It's
Right.
I have guns here, but they're small. They're home protection. They're specifically for that. Like I have the ammunition for home protection. Like I'm not trying to go out there with an assault rifle. Like I just want to make sure if the zombies come, that I
You're
can.
good.
I got to make sure.
Right.
But so that I like I said, I'm really happy that you have the cojones to just say it out loud and make a statement and create music that could potentially. I mean, that's I get a lot of people ask me like, what can we do to fix what's going on in America and all this, and the only answer I always ever have is just spread the word through music, through art, through whatever your craft may be. Like the best you can do is put it out there so that maybe someone else picks up on it. Going and protesting is nice and all that, standing outside of a government building or whatever, but you might end up getting trampled or shot or whatever it may be. So a better way would be, if you're a creative, to just make some music, make some poetry, make some art, something that gets the message across to some people that they might not be even thinking about it.
The pen is mightier than the sword,
Yeah.
it just is. And I don't also, I don't know the scientific research behind this, but I have read that frequency is a powerful tool to reach people. And music has always reached me. It's always gone straight to the heart. It's been a part of the best and worst of my journey, right? The memories that we have. I have soundtracks for all of that. And that's my, that's my platform to get the messages out there rather
Yeah.
than, you know, going out there with a bullhorn and shouting down people's throat about what I believe in or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think protest is good, but also when you fight something like that aggressively, you're just causing a little more friction too. Like they're just feeling more defensive. Like, oh, you're attacking me, I'm gonna attack back. You know what I mean? It's not like a
Protest
civilized
is important
conversation.
though. It's totally important and I support it. And when I can be present for those moments, I'm absolutely 100% down for that. But I feel like the greatest contribution I can make to speaking out is through music. So,
Now,
yeah.
do you plan on touring this solo project?
Well, I would love to, but touring is very expensive
Yes.
and it's a big undertaking. So I'm hoping that, well, I will be performing No God here on the East Coast tour
Nice.
In October with KMFDM that starts on October 16th in Milwaukee. So yeah, I will be performing one song, but as far as touring, I would need to have some significant um, success with the album in order for anybody to kind of invite me out, I think. So I'm hoping that I can create some magic with the record and there'll be some word of mouth. It's an independent record, so there's limited funds to go crazy with promotion. So there's only so much I can do on my own, but we'll see. Maybe little by little it will get under people's skin and it'll find its way. I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was going to say, like, if you're able to pull double duties, and you just go on tour with KMFDM, opening up the show with your own band.
Well, maybe I can do that. We're talking about going back out in March. So I'm looking into that. If I can convince Sasha to allow me to be one of the opening acts, that would make a whole lot of sense because then, everything's already baked in.
Yeah.
Transportation, other musicians. So we'll see. We'll
Life
see.
hack. Life hack is what they call
Yeah.
that.
Right.
When you're coming up, when you were writing this album, and this is more of an internal, as I used to be in a band. I can still consider myself a musician, but haven't done anything in years. I'm always curious the process for you when writing. What comes first into your mind? Is it lyrics? Is it melody? Is it a guitar line, or is it a little bit of everything?
Well, it's a little bit of everything. Hearing the music um, generally sparks this experience where I fall through a door and I start seeing pictures and words and stories, and then I just, you know, I really just go into almost a trance and I see a movie and then I string it all together with words. The best advice I could give to you, if it's something that you're looking to get more into, is of course, if you see a word on a billboard or something, if anything should strike you, you should always write it down or take a picture of it because you'll never remember that. It'll just go by you in the course of your scrolling or the day or whatever. You'll forget that you thought of something or you saw something. And if you have a word, that word, there's a whole story that exists in that word. You just have to ask yourself what it means to you and write down everything that you can associate with that. And then if you're a guitar player, pick up the guitar. If you have garage band and you do it that way, do it that way. I play very little guitar. I'm learning, but I did write No God Here with a guitar with like 3 chords to start out with.
Yeah.
And then of course it was embellished on the record with a real guitar player, Andy Black Sugar. So, you know, if you have an ear, you don't even necessarily have to be the greatest musician to write a great song. There's so many tools at your disposal. Turn on GarageBand, see if you can get a beat going or whatever, whatever you use, whatever program you use to make music. You got a beat, you got a guitar, you got a word, you got a song.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
You start putting it together and then you build on it little by little. Sometimes I start with a keyboard, and I just play a few chords. I try to start very basic when I write a song and not, there's so much available now. You could get lost in chaos with
Yeah.
everything, right? Because you could turn 2 things on and before you know it, you have a whole ready-made track. But for me, I'm a bit old school, so I start with very basic instruments.
Okay. Okay. Now, when you were coming up with these tracks, I mean, did you have a sound in your mind? Were there other bands that were influencing you? You're like, maybe I'll grab a little bit from the Cure, or I'll grab a little bit from the Pixies, or whatever. Like, is there any bands or any influence or something that was in your mind when you were trying to come up with what the overall sound of the album would be? Because people would assume it's going to be a little bit industrial because of your history with KMFDM. So where were you mentally when coming up with a sound like for the album?
Well, I knew I wanted to make a rock record. So I knew that I wanted to, so I got to put him down. I knew
It's
that
okay.
I wanted to have a live band playing on the record because I wanted to be big. And I wanted to add, programming more tastefully done, but not as over the top as you would find on a KMFDM record, because at that point it's like, what's the point in you making a solo record if it sounds like KMFDM? It's just,
Right.
it's like, why bother?
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to make a rock record, but I wanted to approach every song individually. I didn't want to, hold on to that so tight that any spontaneity was gone, like High on You or Believe. Those are big dance records sounding, it's like club records. And when I got with Sasha, he was like a kid in the candy store because he finally felt, well, I really know what to do with this. But on songs Lights Out or, Paper Tiger, those took a little bit of work and finesse because they required a much lighter touch.
Yeah.
It required pulling back all the all these ear candy things that we play with. It's like, no, we need to pull that back. An acoustic guitar would be better there. That's not something that we do very often, or I have done in a very long time on any songs. So I didn't say I wanted Valhalla to sound like Kate Bush, but I did say to myself as I was writing the song, I wonder how I should approach my voice on this because I can't reach some of these notes that I want to. And I thought, well, this is what Kate Bush did. I wonder if I manipulated my voice like that, I might be able to lift it up and do something pretty in that area if I tried it. So I tried a lot of different things that I hadn't done before, thinking of other people, but not necessarily listening to their records and saying, I want it to sound like this. I mean, the record is it's tricky because you can't pigeonhole it stylistically. So, you know, it's not an industrial record, but
No.
because of my history in this genre, people automatically assume before they hear it that it will be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it'll fall under those tags and it might miss a lot of new fans who might really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, hopefully, I mean, this show is got some fans, but hopefully it spreads out more and more in that sense where, more people get a chance to hear it. I'm going to be putting a link in the YouTube description one to the
Great.
videos and everything so people know and at least get to check out the videos and hear the songs because I got the album from you directly and I heard it all in one sitting. It was fantastic. Uh,
Oh, thank you. Did you enjoy it?
yeah, it was great. It was really great. I was very excited. First of all, I was excited to talk to you, in general, because my history with KMFDM goes all the way back to before high school days. I don't know if I told Sasha this when I had him on the show, but I have to thank. Do you know Columbia House?
Yes, of course. Everybody knows of a certain age.
I have to be so thankful to Columbia House for providing me with almost your entire discography for
Wow.
one penny. Because I remember
Wow.
they would send these little catalogs out, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I remember you get to like peel off like a little stamp of the album, and you put that on a card. Like these are the albums I want. That's how you would
I've
pick it.
heard of Columbia House, but I've never actually used it, so I have no idea what you're
Oh,
talking about.
yeah. So they would send you like a catalog, and it had all these albums, and the albums were little tiny stamps, and you would tear it, lick it, and put it on a card, and you would pick 12 of those, and you send that off, and then they charge you a penny, I think it is, and I remember I would pick all of the KMFDM albums because they had cool artwork. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that looks cool. That looks cool. I'll take the whole thing. And then it just changed my entire, growing up. Like, oh my God, the sound is because I grew up very like sheltered in terms of music. I was grew up in a private school, a lot of religion, and can't listen to that. That's the devil's
Oh,
music, and that's
okay.
so
Hence,
like
you are not a religious man now.
exactly. And I mean
Right.
that's pretty much shaped my entire life. Where they told me don't listen to this because it's satanic or whatever. That was the first thing I bought when when I got a chance. I think my first purchase was not Downward Spiral, Pretty Hate Machine from Nine Inch Nails,
Oh,
because
good
because I
choice.
yeah I bought. It was weird. I bought I'm aging myself now. I mean, I'm younger than you, but still like. I went and bought one of those old suitcases, and you fill it up with cassette tapes. That was my
Yep.
first music purchase. Was let me go buy a bunch of cassettes of bands that I'm not allowed to listen to. It was Nine Inch Nails and Danzig and Pantera and all that stuff. And then when CDs came around, that's when you guys got introduced. And I had never heard anything like that. Like industrial. I missed, like the Ministry days. I didn't know who they were. So the most industrial thing I had ever heard was Nine Inch Nails, and then I heard you guys take it to another level, and it's just stuck with me through all these years. It's wild.
Well, the
So
great thing about music is you can pick up at any time, anywhere,
yeah,
right? You should never, nobody should ever, um, feel left out of a time period because you're never too late and you're never too early. Just discovering music is a timeless journey. And so you're here now and you have the entire catalog. You probably know more about KMFDM than I do.
I mean, I don't know. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of albums. I was. That's one thing that I've always appreciated of you guys. That there's always good amount of output. Like you're not quitting, and you're still going. Like you're still touring. You're still putting out new albums, and now because that's not enough. Now you're out doing your own stuff. So
Well,
I
it's like asking a painter. I mean, a
yeah.
painter has to paint, a writer has to write. There's not an expiration date on making music either. It's just something that if it's in you, it needs to come out. So we're lucky that we can share it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fortunate for you that you still have that spark of creativity, that urge to create, even after all these years. That and so much output that some people would burn out. A lot of people do. A lot of people just quit and they just never put stuff out again, or they'll take a break for 20 years and then go play Coachella for a reunion show, as a lot of people do. But I do appreciate that you're still and you're still growing. You're trying new things as well on the
Yeah.
solo album. You're trying new elements of sound. And do you find at this point in your career, with all this experience, do you feel that uh, has your vocal range expanded? Has it been limited? Is there anything that you've noticed that's different?
I have to take care of my voice. I have to be very good to my voice, and I'm not always good to my voice. So depending on how I live that particular day, that's the kind of voice I have to work with that evening or the next day. But generally speaking, I think it's held up pretty well, and I still believe that it's growing. And I think that it will continue to grow as long as I continue to believe it will grow. Because, don't forget that's believing that you can do something is a big part of everything in life. So, if I don't always have that note in me, I practice it and until I get it right, and then it's there. I don't have a voice like Ella Fitzgerald or or any of these big voiced singers. I do have a big voice, but it's not one that is traditionally recognized as being particularly beautiful. But it can make people feel things, and that's powerful too. So I just try to challenge myself and make it grow. I want to be able to express myself long into the future. So
Well, I mean, I think you've done a tremendous job. I know you've said that you said that it's not seen as such a beautiful traditional voice, but I disagree. I mean, some of the older tracks from KMFDM, like one that comes to mind that I listened to many times was "Today." Do you remember that song?
that wasn't me.
It wasn't you. My life is a lie. All these years.
Oh, wait, today. You mean today's a good day to die?
No, no,
That
no,
one?
no.
Oh,
It's a slower song. I
every
think it's
day's
on
a good.
Adios. It's on the Adios.
Oh, that was not me. Now you have to
Damn.
remember. I no, that was not me. I
My
came later.
well,
I came later.
my
That was
life
an
is all a
exit.
lie now. Well,
I'm
no,
not
okay.
quite as old as you think I am.
Well, aside from that song, you have. I mean, I saw you do. What was it called? Farm Club in 2000
Yes,
with. I think that was MDFMK though. That was a different. That was the formation with
that was
Scold.
MDMA.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
yes, that
even
was
there, you
fun.
do a crazy, scream that you do in that song, and it's always
Yes.
been very impactful to me. Like this to see something like I watched that Farm Club video in the 2000s a million times because I was just like I don't understand the performance,
Well, it's that's more ferocious than it is beautiful, though, right?
That's
That's not something that anybody would listen to and go, "Wow, what a beautiful voice." They would say, "Oh, she can scream."
maybe I'm broken. Maybe to me, I find that ferocity beautiful. I'm also a very big fan of like combat sports and not violence, but just kind of that visceral human element where the
Yes,
screaming and like I like metal and death metal and all that stuff. So I
you
find
like
that
power.
beautiful. I like the power of the human spirit to show.
Yes.
But I do appreciate, softer, more beautiful things like the what's on the solo album as well. I'm not just a caveman. Mm. Now, going back to potentially maybe touring, and let's do a hypothetical. If you were to go on tour for your solo project, who would you want to take on that tour with you? Who would you want as the like? Assuming you're the headliner, what do you want? Who do you want there opening
Oh my
up and
God.
supporting
See,
you?
I thought you were going to ask me the easier question, which would be like, who could I open for? I could open for
No.
Sisters of Mercy or The Cure or Blondie or, I could open for loads of people. Who would I want to open for me? That's very difficult to say because I I don't know. I mean, there's a band that's more successful than me that I discovered not too long ago. They're far more successful than I am, so they wouldn't ever open for me. See, that's the thing. I can't wrap my head around having an opening act because I haven't even opened for anybody else as a solo artist.
Well, you got to believe, like you said, you got to believe.
I know, but as you said before, I feel prolific creating the art, but there's so much to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many multitasking that I've been doing to get this whole thing organized and set up that the idea of trying to conceptualize a tour just seems crazy, especially on the heels, not on the heel, is it the heels or it's coming into a KMFDM tour. It's a lot. So I probably will once we finish this tour. I probably will take a little bit of a break before I do any more music because there isn't an inexhaustible amount of energy. Just it needs to come down a little bit.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's important to reset and
Yeah.
absorb because people don't take into consideration the sensory overload, not just that you're putting out to the fans, but what comes to you from being in front of an audience that's screaming your lyrics back at you and giving you their energy. You also absorb a lot of this, and
Yes.
it's a lot of dopamine and whatever chemicals in your
Yes.
brain that you need to come down from that because it's a drug almost. It's that's one thing that I don't want to get sad, but when you hear of famous musicians taking their own lives or whatever, they're like, I don't get it. They had everything. They had money and fame and all. It's like, yeah, but you got to think about the overload in the brain that comes from having the audience come at you and give you their energy and then the come down when you're home when that's not your normal anymore and you're just at home and there's nobody screaming your name or singing at you, that dopamine hit is not there anymore and then you get into withdrawals of that and that's where the sadness comes. You know what I
Well,
mean?
you must, I'm sure you're talking to people that are very famous. I don't,
No.
it's not my reality.
Well, I mean, I've been at your shows. I've seen your packed houses, people singing along with your stuff. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen it. So it may not be to the extremes of like an arena or a stadium or
right.
something like that, but it's still a lot. I mean, just having two people scream at you is like you're like it takes you back because you're like, wow, there's someone else that appreciates what I'm doing and they feel it and they want to sing it back and but
Yeah,
I
no,
totally understand.
we do get the tour blues on
Yeah.
every tour. Everybody gets that for about 2 weeks afterwards, where there's that feeling, where did everybody go? So quiet. It's so
Yeah.
quiet. And then your ears start.
Mm.
because it's so loud on stage and so you hear your hear loss. You notice your ears ringing all the time. But I'm a pretty chill, laid back person who really enjoys being in my own space. So when I go out on tour and I get that hit that you're talking about, it's great. It's
Yeah.
fantastic, of course. But when we're done with the tour and we come back home, I can go right back into my routine comfortably and get back into the groove. I think what people forget, just to touch on this a little bit, you were talking about suicide, and I think people forget that folks that are in the public eye have just as many problems as anybody else. We're humans and we're dealing with our reality that, things that are going on behind the scenes that aren't always publicly shared. And we're just as vulnerable as anybody else. So, with social media and all the communication that is exchanged freely now, I think people really get that because everybody's so forthright with their stories, their journeys, fans have an opportunity to connect and see that there's very little difference, there's very little separation. It's like the stage is the only separation, you
Mm.
know. Of course, there's greater and lesser degrees of that, but yeah, artists are sensitive people, so they tend to,
Yeah.
sometimes they
Get
just go.
Yeah, it's too much sometimes. It's too much to handle. But not to get, I don't want to get sad. So let's shift it. I want to ask you something personal, and hopefully, you don't have to answer it or whatever if you don't feel comfortable. But what do you do? You mentioned that coming off the road, you're able to go back to your standard of living, and what do you do when you're not doing music? What are some of the things you enjoy? Like, is it reading or is there something else aside from music that brings you peace at home? And aside from, I mean, I know you have family, so aside from family, like
Yeah.
what do you do for yourself to feel at peace at home?
I love to go for long walks in the woods with my dog. That's really great because that's where I connect with God. It's in
Ah,
nature. So I spend a lot of time out in nature, just kind of absorbing all the goodness that is out there. Love to cook. Absolutely
okay,
love to cook. So do a lot of that. I like to paint. I like
nice.
to draw. I'm not very good, but I do read, but not as much as I should because I hate to say it, but we are always making music. So I'm always either writing something or recording something. So when I usually try to take my hands off a pen or a page, which is not good. I need to do a lot more reading, but I like to just be outside. So, you know,
Touching
see,
grass, as they say.
watch movie. Yes. No shit.
Yeah,
I
go
mean
touch
that.
grass, guys.
I mean that. Go touch grass.
Nah, I feel that. I'm not a particularly adventurous person. Like, I live in Los Angeles. A lot of people always like, "Oh, let's go hiking and let's go camping." And I'm like, "Look, I enjoy the outside, but in limited spurt, like when I want it. Not like I don't do weekly hikes because
What
I
about
work.
mountain lions? Aren't there mountain lions and things like that? See, that
Oh
would
yeah,
freak me out.
that's one of the reasons I don't like going out there. Another reason why I don't go out into the ocean either. I have friends that are like, "Oh, let's go surfing or scuba diving." I'm like, I don't fuck with the ocean at all. Like, I'll go hang out on the beach, right by the shore. That's about as far as I go. I had a very bad experience speaking to Poseidon himself when I decided to eat a bunch of mushrooms and go for a swim one day.
What happened? Did you just keep swimming? Did you just
So
keep? swimming out there and you didn't stop,
I
right? You
didn't
thought you
stop.
could cross the ocean.
So I kept going and going, and then I remember going underwater at one point, and I opened my eyes, which was a bad idea because salt water burns your eyes or whatever. But I opened my eyes and I saw a giant face. Like everything that I could see, which was water, was actually a face,
Wow.
and it just said, "Turn around."
That
I was like, "Yes,
was
sir." Yeah, I was like,
God.
"Yes, sir. Whatever you say, buddy." And I just and I never went back. I'm like, I don't belong in the ocean. I was told by the god of water that I do not need to be there. So
So how do you remember how far out you were? Did you really swim out far
it was
or?
pretty far. I remember when I turned around, I remember not being able to see the actual sand or so like the land. So I knew that I was going in one direction. So I was like, let me just turn around 180 and go back. And then eventually I started seeing, the sand and buildings and whatever. So I was like, okay, I'm going the right way. So just keep going. Um, but yeah, don't do
So the
mushrooms and
more
go for a
don't
swim,
do much
guys.
near the beach.
Uh, but yeah, I do enjoy being outside, like yoga. I like doing yoga outside. I like to appreciate what we have around us, even though in Los Angeles it's very limited. So I go to parks and whatnot. Um, but that's awesome that you reconnect with nature in that way. Have you ever experimented with like a mushroom or anything like that?
I experimented with LSD when I was in high school, and I said to a girlfriend not too long ago, all I want to try, there's only one more thing I really want to try, and that's like ayahuasca. And I
Yes.
would love to have that experience before I die. I would love have you ever done that?
Yep.
Is it as cool as they say?
I hope you like throwing up.
Oh
It's a
no,
lot
I
of
don't like
vomit.
growing up. So did you feel like you could see beyond the veil? Did you have an illumination that they
So
talk about that you really get it?
sort of. But the thing is, I can't pinpoint it to that experience specifically because during that time I was in a very particular space of exploration. I had just had a very bad car accident. So,
Ooh.
um, like where I was proclaimed dead, I was supposedly dead scientifically. But I do remember seeing something when I was out, and I spent like 4 years kind of trying to figure out what that was. And I did eventually get my answer. But was it the ayahuasca? Was it the countless LSD trips? Was it the mushrooms? Was it the yoga? Was it, I don't know. I will say that what stood out the most from the ayahuasca experience, aside from the vomiting,
Well,
was
now I don't want to do it because now you, I mean, if you're
it's a
going to
lot.
spend 90% of the time throwing up, and how long are you actually having your like mind-bending experience?
So the experience of the mind bending experience feels timeless. It's only a few hours, probably
How
like
long are you throwing up for?
you throw up for a good hour.
Oh,
Uh,
that sucks. I
and
don't
it's
want to do.
and it's everyone. It's not just it wasn't just me. Like I got a bad batch. Everybody in the group was also throwing up. Because it's a very disgusting tasting thing. It doesn't taste good. It tastes like root, and I don't know if you've ever had kava. That's another like root drink that
Yes, yes. Yeah, I've
similar to
had.
like kava, which is kind of gross, like
Okay.
earthy dirt. Tastes like dirt. Um, but after the vomiting, what I did notice that was different from say an LSD or a mushroom was that what I was seeing, the other people were seeing it too. Because mushrooms and whatever, you have psychedelic, you see things, but nobody else sees it. You're like, oh my God, is that a snake? And they're like, no, dude, relax. Um, but but with that, I'm like, guys, do you see that? And they're like, yes. And it was like I would describe things like, are you seeing this person? It's like a woman, and they're like, yeah. And they would give me things like, oh, her hair is brown, and I'm like, yep. And that was what tripped me out, was that we were having a shared visual psychedelic thing, which I think ayahuasca connects you to a specific energy. I'll say, entity of energy, and it's like a key to a specific door that you're opening. Whereas, like,
What I'm looking for. I'm looking for the key. I'm looking to open that door.
yeah. Well, I mean, I say try it. It's going to be rough,
Well, I
but
don't know when. I have no plans right now. I don't live in a part of the world where it's easily accessible. And, I would have to,
you have
in
to go to
order for
Peru.
all of the things to line up for that to happen, it would have to be highly organized, and that takes time. So I don't see myself having that experience anytime soon, but I'd like to at some point before I leave this plane.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's something that you should, because it kind of it does make you see things a little differently. You do see that there is something of a veil. Like there is something else beyond what we are experiencing here. And it's mostly just energy and frequency, like you said. Like that's why music is so powerful, I think, because it is mostly we are just energy that's vibrating, and if we can tune into different frequencies, we can do anything really. I think that's what happens when you create music. We tune in to a specific channel on
Absolutely.
your radio dial that
I
allows
was
this
just
flow. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what I do when I write a song. It's like if you can just turn the dial to the right station, everything just comes through.
Oh, if you
And
already have that, then you don't need ayahuasca. You're good.
yeah, but I wanna walk through the door that I walk through in my mind. I want to walk through that door and really feel like I'm walking through physically. I
Yeah.
want to have that.
Well, my recommendation, and it's similar to what I did, because a lot of here in Los Angeles, you can sign up at like a yoga gym, and they go on these adventures in groups with a bunch of rich, fancy people. That it's a very, very like tame experience. I went to Peru and did.
Oh, wow.
I
That sounds
had no money. Like I had enough money for what I thought I needed in my brain. I'm like, I have enough money to get from here to here, and for food, and I ran out of money, and I ran out of food, and
that sounds like a nightmare.
it was pretty bad because we did the hike. There's a they call it the Inca Trail. You climb up the Andes. It's like a 3 day hike, and
Whoa.
you end up in the Machu Picchu ruins, which are it's like an 18,000 above sea level, crazy altitude. But yeah, about halfway through that hike, I ran out of food and almost died. But I recommend you do something like that, but just be more prepared than I was.
Yeah, I would definitely want to have that experience in South America. I wouldn't want to, I'm not, what doing some kind of she experiment doesn't interest me at all.
Oh, you don't want to go to Malibu
No.
and
I mean, I might like to go there for maybe, a Baja fish taco or something. Sit on
oh,
the beach and have something, but no, I'm a person who likes to be submersive in the experience in a natural environment. You know what I mean?
definitely, it's definitely a much better experience that way, I think. But anyway, I wanted to thank you for some time with me today. I again, I've been a fan for many, many years. It's an honor to even have you email me and be like, "Hey, you want to talk?" Like, of course I want to talk. What are you talking about?
Thank
That's
you.
wild.
Thank you. I appreciate your support, and I hope that your listeners will check out the record, and please add the Bandcamp link there and
Will
the
do.
KMFDM store so people know where they can get it because that would be super helpful.
Absolutely. Is there going to be a vinyl release, you think, or a
Yes,
physical
there
release?
is.
Okay.
Yes, I did a Kickstarter for this record, and after I fulfill my Kickstarter, I will be shipping to the KMFDM store. The pre-orders are open. People can order vinyl right now, and they'll have them by the end of October. So,
Amazing.
and
Amazing. And then
CDs, vinyl, digital downloads, the whole nine yards.
nice, nice. What's your preferred social media for people to follow and keep an eye on what you're doing?
Well, I'm always on Instagram, most of all, so they can find me there. I'm trying to get better at being everywhere. But if they want to see regular updates, they should visit my Instagram page.
No TikToks? You're not doing little dances on TikTok?
I am on TikTok, but I haven't really gotten the hang of it yet because I'm not somebody who does the little dances, and I'm not somebody who's changing my clothes or telling good jokes. The things that I do well aren't appreciated. And if they are, I haven't figured out how to do it right yet. So I'm posting on there, but I haven't gotten the hang of it yet. I haven't found my groove on there, but
Hey, me neither. I don't know how it works. I've
can't be good at
uploaded
everything.
I've uploaded videos. Some videos do good, others don't. I don't understand how the algorithm works. I tried all of their things like, oh, let's put hashtags and this, that, and the other, and it doesn't seem to make a difference. Like I've the only thing that actually makes a difference sometimes is when I just post something with nothing, no words, no hashtags.
Really?
Yeah, I posted on my Instagram. I posted a picture of me and the drummer from Mastodon just drinking beer, no words, just that picture, and I got the most attraction than anything I've ever posted. It was just like, really? I've had actual interviews with him, and it didn't do that well. Like, there's no, I don't know, I don't understand the algorithm, so don't feel bad that you don't get the flow of TikTok because I don't. Not many people do. I think that's like a kid's game at this point.
Well, thank you, Eddie.
Thank you,
I really
Lucia.
appreciate it. And I hope that well, I know you're in LA, so we probably won't see you this time around, but let's get in touch in March. We might be going out in 2025. We're going to definitely be in the West Coast if we do that tour. So maybe we see you then.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for inviting me. Last time you guys were in town, and I had a blast at the show and getting to hang out afterwards. Like, you guys are real troopers to do a show and then actually go party after and hang out with everybody and be a part of it, and not just get in your bus and get out to the next town.
No, well, we love you guys. So
Well,
hopefully, hopefully we'll see you soon, man. Thank you.
absolutely. I'll keep an eye out for the tour dates and I'll reach out so we can be in between. And everybody, please pick up the album. At least go listen to it on the Bandcamp, and you'll see for yourself, and then you'll find yourself clicking add to cart very quickly. So thank you again for your time. We'll talk soon.
All right. Talk
Bye.
soon.